President Oaks
Oaks.
spoke.
I loved it.
Loved President Oaks's
Huh.
talk. In fact, I've got some excerpts from it here, and I'm just going to share with you what I loved about President Oaks. So they got called, I think, at the same time or fairly close to each other. So they sat together for 34 years in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles before President Nelson became the prophet.
As the cold winds of winter sweep in, there's nothing like the warmth of a comforting cup to help you slow down and unwind. This is the season. Let Postum be your cozy companion. Made from roasted grains, Postum is caffeine-free and rich with a smooth roasted flavor. It's the perfect drink for those quiet, chilly mornings. Whether you're curled up with a good book, sharing a laugh with loved ones, or simply watching the snow fall outside, a cup of Postum is the moment you have been waiting for.
Welcome to This Week in Mormons, what we are now calling the Twin Spouses Edition.
Oh.
Did you know we got our own name?
No,
Well,
I had no idea.
See, if you had listened to when Ariane and I recorded 2 weeks ago, you would have heard that Richie Stedman over from the podcast called The Cultural Hall. You probably didn't know that there was a podcast called The Cultural Hall.
Nope.
He sent us a comment in, and he suggested that you and I should be called the Twin Spouses.
Oh, nice.
Because, we've got the twin sisters, we've got the twin siblings. And so in keeping with that, we now have the Twin Spouses.
I like it.
So that's our name. So if I ever have an opportunity to record with a friend again, then we can go back to the Twin Taffy edition.
Yeah.
But you and I are going to be the Twin Spouses.
Okay.
Do you like that?
I do. I like that.
All right. So for our listeners, in case you can't tell, this is your host, Tiffany Hales Tanner, and I am back tonight with my spouse, Darren Tanner.
Glad to be here again.
Yes, Darren, thank you for joining me again tonight.
Mhm.
I always love recording with you. It's really fun. I have a very different energy with you than I have when I record with my sister. So I hope the listeners like that, we like to get a variety of voices in here. All right, so we got to start with some host chat. We got to tell the people what we've been working on. We had a big project yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
Do you want to tell them what our big project was yesterday?
Well, it wasn't just yesterday. It started
That's true.
Earlier in the week.
It did start earlier in the week. Yesterday was just the accumulation of it.
We were cooking again.
Hard to believe.
For a wedding.
We didn't get enough wedding in September.
Mm-hmm.
We had to have more wedding in October.
Right. For my nephew.
Yes. So fortunately, all we had to do was the food. We didn't have to do the food plus all of the planning, which we had to do in September because that was our daughter.
Right.
So, all right. Tell them what we cooked.
We did tacos. We did pulled pork tacos. Mm-hmm. And you made a bunch of sides.
I did. So you cooked the pork, 12 hours in the Traeger. Darren did not get much sleep on Thursday night.
It wasn't too bad.
It wasn't too, okay.
Not at all.
And then we had, so the way that we served them is we put them in not the mini flour shells, but not like the really big flour shells. They're a flour shell that's about 6 inches wide, would you say? And so we put them in little boats. So 2 flour shells with probably a couple ounces of meat in each little boat. And then they could pick up the boat and dress their taco. And so they had cheese and lettuce and sour cream. I made some pico de gallo for them.
Oh, and the street corn.
Oh, street corn. So street corn wasn't good to go on the taco. Street corn was like a side dish. The bride had wanted street corn.
I did put it on my taco, though.
Oh, okay. And I should say, this wasn't your typical street corn in terms of it was still on the cob. This was frozen kernels that were off the cob that I made into a cold street corn salad. I had literally never made this recipe before. We made it the day of the wedding and we're like, well, we hope this turns out good. And it did. It was really yummy.
Had a lime as a kicker.
It did. Had a lot of lime as a kicker. And it not
as
only
zested. The lime?
Yes, I zested the lime. It was kind of funny when I asked you to zest the lime. You really weren't sure what to do. So then I said, go over to the skillet and blacken the corn for me. And I said,
I do know how to do that.
You do know how to do that. You were being a little kind to the lime. Like you didn't want to hurt the lime. You didn't want to hurt the lime's feelings.
I didn't know the rules on this zesting.
Exactly. So then I picked up the lime and tell him what I did to the lime.
Oh, you zested it. Aggressive.
I was very aggressive in my zesting. In fact, look, I got an owie on my thumb right there from the grater because I was so aggressive in my zesting.
But it did. It gave the street corn. It gave it just a lime at the
It
end
really
to
did.
where it was like it felt fresh. It tasted so good.
It was really yummy. And then we also had a nacho bar. The bride requested a nacho bar. So I made this queso. And this was seriously, in my opinion, like the best queso I've ever made. We did queso for Father's Day for our dads, and the Relief Society did. And that was pretty good queso, but
not like this queso.
Not like this queso.
Yep.
And there were some issues in that queso recipe that we used for Father's Day that I didn't like and had to fix. And so this time around, what I did is I took my cheese sauce that I use as my base for mac and cheese. And rather than put in the spices that we use when we do mac and cheese, I put in the queso spices as well as the Rotel tomatoes and all of that. And holy moly, it was really good. We had so much left over. You and I both had queso for lunch today. It was good.
It was. No, I think in the Dutch oven.
Yeah.
And just letting it, I mean, you had it pretty much done, but we'd let it cook for a little bit in the
Dutch oven.
And man, it was good.
It was good. Also made guacamole too. That guacamole was part of the nacho bar along with salsa and more sour cream. And then for desserts.
I was back at the guacamole today.
Oh, he was back at the guacamole today. See, I felt like I got a little too much lime in the guacamole, but you really like the lime.
I do.
So when I tasted the guacamole today, I was like, oh, I needed about half as much lime as it got. But you loved the lime in it. And then dessert. Churros.
Lots of churros.
Lots of churros. We got our fryer out. And we have never done sauce with churros before, but apparently it's very typical when you eat your churro that you eat it with especially a chocolate sauce. And so I did a chocolate sauce and a caramel sauce. The churros, like you dip those churros in chocolate sauce and that really levels them up.
Yeah, especially that chocolate sauce.
Yeah. So anyway. So yeah, we had a fun time. As always, I enjoy doing food stuff with you.
Oh yeah. We got it out and did it again.
And did it again. So, all right. So now tell our listeners, are we done?
We are not done.
We are not done.
We have next weekend.
We are staring down one more big food activity before the end of the year.
Hold on. As soon as we got in the rig last night after loading it up, I think the first thing I said was one more.
One more. Yes.
One more.
That's exactly what you said.
We're going to try to get our lives back.
Oh, we have done so much food this year. It's been insane. Okay, so tell them what our one more is a week from tonight. So it's next Saturday night on the 18th. Tell them what we're doing.
So it's the steak youth, all the youth in the steak.
14 and up.
14 and up. And it's the hoopla.
It's the hoopla. So they try and do a quarterly activity for the kids rather than a steak dance. And so we are doing the food because, as you know, from perpetually being in Young Men's, nothing gets them to the activity more than what?
Food.
Food. Exactly.
Lots of food.
So tell them what we're doing next weekend.
We're doing a hot dog bar.
Yeah, we're going to kind of maybe try and do a knockoff J-Dog thing, maybe.
Kind of,
hopefully.
Yeah. I think it's going to go pretty good.
I think it's going to go pretty good. I got to learn how to make J-Dog sauce this week. I did see that there's a couple of recipes online for that. And if you don't live in Utah, then you don't know what J-Dogs are. Now, we don't live in Utah, but we've been down there enough to know. It's this famous hot dog stand that started south of BYU, and now they have several locations all over Utah. And they're just like super well known for their hot dogs. So we
found it when I was dating you.
Yes.
Is when I found it.
Yes. I think
Loved it.
I think I hit
Old
in there.
Testament style.
Yes.
I want mine burned up.
You like everything you eat, Old Testament style.
Not
burned
everything.
up.
Not my. So we're doing what a funnel cake?
Funnel cake. We've never done funnel cake before.
No, we've only used it as a batter.
For deep fry night.
For deep fry night. But we will be doing.
So guess what, listeners? Guess what Darren and Tiffany are going to be doing this week?
That's right.
We're going to get out the fryer and figure out how to make funnel cakes because we told them we'd make, 200, 300, 400 funnel cakes for next weekend.
Yeah.
We're like, it can't be that hard.
Right. No, what I love about the youth serving especially the steak. What's this? Will be our fourth one?
Yes, this is our fourth one.
Fourth one.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's like my calling, and anytime we're with the youth, like cooking for the young women or anything, it's that serving part. And it's like Heavenly Father makes it just a little bit better because we are trying to serve these youth, and it's good. It's a good thing. These activities have been, they're cool. They're like so planned out and so worth it. They are.
And the kids love them, and they bring their friends, or they bring friends from other stakes. In fact, I was just even talking to Ariane today, and I said, our stake is adjacent to her stake. I said, maybe our two stakes ought to team up on these, because then you'd have double the kids, you'd have double the help, because it does require a lot of help from the adults.
It does.
And if I'm cooking 200 hot dogs, I might as well cook 400 hot dogs. There's really not that much difference if you have to, get all your stuff out there to cook hot dogs.
Yeah.
So.
But the ones who've been leading it this time, the Bushes.
Yes, from our stake.
They are so great at this. They should
are.
keep him and give him that assignment.
Which they're on the countdown. They're like, they were on the committee last year, and then they got in charge of the committee this year, and they're like, we're done. Like, she seriously is on the countdown.
They're so good at it, though.
They are.
So.
And then we're also doing cotton candy, because this is supposed to be kind of a carnival sort of event. And then they are going to do root beer floats. Now, Darren, tell them about the root beer that they're going to do for the root beer floats.
Oh, we're doing homemade root beer?
We're doing homemade root beer.
And homemade root beer used to be a good thing. Was it before COVID?
Yeah.
Even before that.
Yeah, even before that, because when we first moved into this
10
ward.
10 years ago, it was running good.
You would make homemade root beer for the kids in our ward all the time.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then the extract got kind of hard to find for a while.
The Schilling.
Yeah.
Schilling got bought out by another company, and the new company discontinued their extract.
I had no idea.
I found that online this time when I was like, why in the world can I not find Schilling extract? What is wrong? That's why.
And we tried it after that a couple of times, and they were failures.
We used the Watkins. It was horrible.
Yeah, it didn't work for what we were trying to do.
Exactly. But we recently discovered that the Fred Meyer in our area has Hires, or Big H extract.
I think it's back.
It is back. Well, it's not the Schilling, but it's close.
It's like the old Hires.
Exactly. Your brother made it for his son's wedding last night. And what was funny is he had test driven it 2 or 3 times and never could get the flavor right. And finally his wife said to him, like, he's throwing in brown sugar, he's throwing in honey, he's throwing in all sorts of stuff. His wife finally says, have you followed the recipe? And he's like, no. She's like, well, why don't you follow the recipe? And the recipe calls for cane sugar. And guess what happened?
That's right.
It turned out. So Darren, guess what we're going to be doing?
We will try to follow the recipe.
We're going to use cane sugar. We're not going to use brown sugar. We're not going to use honey. We're going to use cane sugar. Anyway, we are hoping to have this.
Yes, it did turn out good.
It was delicious.
So good.
Yeah, it was very good. So we're hoping to have a whole big vat of root beer for these kids. And because you put dry ice in it, the dry ice comes out the top.
You got it. Love it.
I think it'll be really fun. So anyway, hopefully after we get through that activity, we don't have any more cooking planned. I've got a couple smaller activities. I've got Relief Society Super Saturday, which is going to require a lot of coordination. But that's the first Saturday in November. And then I hope that we get to exhale, because we have not exhaled since January, maybe. It's been a wild ride in 2025.
It has.
A lot going on.
Every weekend's been busy.
Every weekend's been busy. It's very true. So we have some Darren and Tiffany things we'd like to maybe get to.
Mhm. We're really gonna try to say no to a few
Yeah,
things.
we are.
It's really hard, but
It is. Because we like to serve.
we really do need some Darren Tiffany time.
We do. We do. And I have some other things like family history. Right behind me, I got a whole big box of family history stuff that I'm just kind of jonesing to attack.
Yeah.
So,
I'm missing a camp out.
oh, that's right. You're missing the camp out
Mhm.
next weekend in order to
Be ready.
be ready for
Yeah.
the food.
I would try to push it for a camp out, but I don't dare mess this one up since it is the last one.
It is the last one. That's right. All right. Well, the big news of the week is last weekend was conference. And so
Loved it.
because this is the first TWIM recording after conference, we get to do the post-conference wrap-up, which is fantastic. So yes, it was a great weekend. You and I made a very conscious decision that we would be home physically in our house, either listening or watching all 5 sessions of conference.
We
And
did. We prepared again.
We prepared. Yep. And we did, like we would leave in between sessions and run errands and stuff, but we were here for every session.
Yeah. And making sure we were here.
Exactly. Exactly. So first of all, this was kind of historic because it was the first time in 70 years without a singular person designated as prophet. Now we know that the members of the Quorum of the 12 are all called as prophets, seers, and regulators, revelators.
That'd be cool if they were
They're
regular.
probably regulators too. They regulate us.
They have to.
They have to. Exactly. And so this was the first time we did not have a singular person that we identify as the prophet. And so it was led by the Quorum of the 12, which of course is the president of the Quorum of the 12 is Dallin H. Oaks. And so what were your thoughts on it? It was the same, but yet it was kind of unique. So what were your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I was so prepared for conference again
Uh-huh.
with just what I wanted to hear. And I don't know. It was super neat how each one of them, how a lot of different people were conducting.
You know, that's so true because usually it is always a member of the First Presidency that conducts, but that was not the case.
Yeah.
We had Elder Bednar conducted, Elder Cook conducted. Who else conducted? Was it Gong that conducted? Did he conduct one session?
Can't remember.
I can't remember, but every session there was somebody different that conducted. I just remember the I think it was the Saturday afternoon session. I think President Oaks conducted the Sunday morning or Saturday morning session, if I recall correctly.
He did.
And then it was Saturday afternoon. He was like, "We're going to have Elder Bednar conduct." And I was like, "Oh, hey, this is a little different."
I like that.
I like that. So it was a little different. All right, here we are. On the 11th of October, we are 14 days, or actually 2 weeks from the death of President Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And we still do not have a new prophet and first presidency. Which, you know, in many ways, when this first happened, I thought that we would, but we don't. And then you and I did a little deep dive into history the other night because I was kind of thinking, so President Nelson's funeral was Tuesday this week. And I thought, oh, you know, maybe they'll meet Thursday, make an announcement Friday. And so I always feel like history is a good indication of what the future will be. So you and I did a big deep dive into church history to just kind of look and see when they announce prophets and when prophets are chosen. And so
the day of the week.
The day of the week.
Right.
Exactly. So I had said to you that I had looked up online that President Nelson, they had met in the Salt Lake Temple on a Sunday. President Nelson was called and set apart that Sunday, and then they did a news conference on Monday. So then that made me wonder, well, when was President Monson called? And so we went back 5 prophets because you have this handy little app.
I do.
Show them talk about your little app
So
that you have.
my app is called Latter-day apostles,
Okay.
and it looks something like this. And you
For
can,
those of you on the YouTube, it's got a little wheel on the app.
yes, and you can spin it back dates, and they change per dates of who and when,
Because they have pictures, little
Mhm.
pictures of all the apostles.
and it just keeps, or you can just keep going, but it goes clear back to the foundation of the Joseph Smith. And
And weren't you clicking on a prophet and it would tell you
yeah,
the
each one of
date
them gives a little,
bio?
yep, of
Okay.
each one of them. Some are short, but some are super, and it's super neat. So
Well, and doesn't it on the bio tell you the day that they became the prophet?
it does.
And so what he would do is he'd go back and he'd tell me the name, and then I'd hop on my phone and I'd Google what day of the week that was in that year. And we went back 5 prophets. We didn't go back any further than 5 prophets. But when we went back 5 prophets,
Sunday,
every single one of them
Sunday.
was Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. So I am going to predict with a certain degree of certainty, although many of you will probably be listening to this after the news is already broken, that today is Saturday, tomorrow is Sunday. They will be meeting tomorrow. They will have a press conference on Monday. In fact, not only am I going to predict the press conference on Monday, I'm going to predict the time of the press conference on Monday. 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, because we like to do things at 10 a.m. when we're the church, whether it's regular Mountain Time or Daylight Time, because that puts it at noon on the East Coast and that puts it at 9 on the West Coast. Sorry for all you people who live outside of America, because we just operate on the time here. So anyway, I think at 10 a.m. on Monday morning, there will be a press conference where they will introduce, obviously, probably more than likely, again, if history repeats itself, Dallin H. Oaks as the new prophet. And then the question will be, who will his counselors be?
Huh.
And there's been lots of speculation on that.
I think this is such a cool time if you really look at it and understand, you know what I mean? Where everyone's mourning the loss of President Nelson and just the wonderful man he is, but to show the strength and the authority and the organization of the gospel, and how Jesus Christ has set these men up to where each one of them could conduct.
Exactly.
It's a wonderful thing to see, especially at this time in our lives, because I was so prepared for this one. You know what I mean?
For conference.
For conference and for a new prophet now, of praying for, like we've been doing.
Yeah.
Praying for President Oaks, and it's good.
Exactly. No, it'll be cool. It'll be, I think one of the biggest questions is whether Henry B. Eyring will stay in the first presidency. And the only reason to not have him stay would be his health. His health is not great. But at the same time, the first presidency doesn't do a lot of traveling. And so if you keep him in the first presidency, then you can keep some of those younger apostles who are much more capable of traveling because they don't have health issues out and about amongst the people.
Huh.
So I don't know. We'll see. And then that brings us to the question of, when do we get a new member of the Quorum of the 12?
Oh.
Again, I did a little deep dive in it. Well, this one I didn't do as deep of a dive. I went back and looked, when was Elder Suarez called? Because he was called when Russell M. Nelson became the prophet, thus, freeing up and after President Monson died. It was 2 months after President Nelson became the prophet before they called him.
That long.
President Nelson was called in January 2018. Elder Suarez was called in March, just, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before conference. So the question is, are they going to wait nearly 6 months to call someone right before our April conference? Or are they just going to get Johnny on the spot and call him, maybe in the next couple of months?
Right.
I don't know. I would tend to think that they're not going to wait until April. I don't think we will get an announcement Monday of a new member of the Quorum of the 12.
Right.
I think it will just be focused on the first presidency. I don't think they will dilute that announcement with a new member of the Quorum of the 12. I do think that will come later. I don't think they'll wait till April. And the reason I don't think they'll wait till April is those guys are busy.
Yeah.
They need another body. They
Yeah.
need someone there to help them with this work because they have a lot going on, and many hands make light work. So that's my prediction. You got any thoughts
You
on
got to
that?
have a good crew.
You got to have a good crew. It's very
Hmm.
true. Any other thoughts on that before I move on to maybe talk about what actually happened in conference?
Let's go there.
Okay. First of all, President Oaks. Matt predicted this in his conference predictions, is that we would not announce any new temples, and sure enough, that is exactly what happened. Is President Nelson has been on a tear for the last 7 years, and every conference, we got somewhere between 10 and 20 new temples announced,
He's
and
a builder.
he's a builder, and I kept thinking to myself, how long can we keep this up? Well, apparently we now know, because President Oaks got up when it was his turn to speak and said, we got a lot of temples, and we've announced a lot of temples, and they're in the very earliest phases of planning and construction. So given that, we're going to slow down on temple announcements for a while.
Nice.
So now the question is, how do we want to put hard money on the table for how long before he starts announcing temples again?
What do you think? Within a year, right?
I think it's going to be longer than that. There are so many that are announced. I'm going to say he gives a 2-year moratorium. 2-year
I don't know.
moratorium
I
on
think
new
he's going to
temples.
throw one or two in
You think he's going to throw one or
within a
two
year.
in?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see. All right, folks. That's a return and report at a future date. But yeah, that was kind of surprising, but not surprising,
Right.
because again, he's absolutely right. We had a lot, and before President Nelson, prior prophets wouldn't announce a temple till they picked a site and determined a location. And President Nelson was like, "Yeah, we'll have one there. We'll figure out those details later.
Getting it done.
Get it done." All right, let's talk about talks, since that was, kind of the purpose of general conference. What stood out to you? You've had a week or so to digest some of the talks. I know you've been listening to them.
So I moved my so one of my goals is to listen to the prophets talk each workday morning. And so this last week I switched just right to President Oaks talk, his last talk, the Sunday, and just listening to it. And then going back to a few of my fun ones, which is Elder Bednar, Sister Browning,
Yes, Tracy Browning about the
about
primary
songs. I
songs.
loved
was a
it. That was
great
my
one.
that's my style.
That is your style. He's a very simple man, people.
And then one that that we really liked was it Brother Amos?
Yes.
Elder Amos.
Yes, I have him on my list here.
I just was like, oh my gosh.
So his name is John Amos. And the essence of his talk was, get more Jesus in your diet.
Yeah, love it.
He is the general authority that is from Louisiana, and he got up there with his Louisiana accent. He started talking about his Louisiana cooking, and he was endearing. My first thought was, where have we been hiding him? Why did we not let him come out and play more? He's fantastic.
Both you and I were like, we loved it.
We did.
It was nice.
We did.
Excellent.
We did. I also liked, I thought this story was very telling. Peter Johnson, he is a member of the 70, and he got up and he was a convert to the church, and he talked about, he was converted, and then a year later he found himself on his mission. And then while he was on his mission, he learned for the first time about the ban on blacks in the priesthood. And this just threw him for a complete loop while he was on his mission. And he talked about, how he overcame that. And I really liked that story.
Right.
Because I think that there's a lot of things associated with church history that, sometimes people don't know, or they don't find out until later. And some things can have a tendency to shake people's testimony. And I think his example of how he was able to work through this is just a very powerful message coming across the pulpit at conference.
Huh.
So I liked his talk.
Nice.
Well, and as you know, I am going to get the opportunity in the next several days to really delve into the conference talks because I got an assignment today to speak in Sacrament a week from tomorrow. And the assignment is pick your favorite conference talk and talk about it. I was like, oh, easy peasy lemon squeezy.
That's excellent.
Maybe it'll be easy peasy because there's so much good stuff to choose from. So
There really
I
is.
I will really be delving into them because apparently I will be speaking on the 19th on my favorite conference talk, or at least a conference talk that
Nice.
resonated with me.
No, I really thought we had a wonderful conference,
Yeah.
especially together.
We did.
Our kids that were here
I know our kids
we
all
didn't even
watched
ask
too.
them.
Yeah, no,
No,
they sat and they
and
watched, and
it was just a wonderful weekend.
it was.
Grateful.
All right, a couple of other conference highlights. We need to talk about the music in conference. So, I love conference music because usually they are singing a bevy of the tried and true, well tested hymns from our hymnal. That because they're the tried and true, and I've heard them all my life, I love those hymns. And I, without question, I can always feel the spirit when at least I'm singing a hymn I'm familiar with. The hymns that I'm not so familiar with, it's a little harder for me to feel the spirit, but the hymns that are some of my favorites, which are usually ones that always get sung in conference, I can always feel the spirit. So I'm always loving that. But what was really interesting this time is of the 25 songs performed, 10 of those were from the new hymn book, Hymns for Home and Family.
I thought it was super cool because that way I know how they're singing them.
Exactly.
Because if there's a few of them that you and I don't do music.
No. We
Like-
enjoy music,
Right?
but we are not
And
musical
we listen
people.
to really good music.
We do, but we cannot read.
No. And
It's
this
like dots
really
and
helped me out. So I
sticks.
paid attention.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I think that was probably the purpose of it
Right.
is I noticed a lot of these hymns when I went back through the new ones had arrangements by either Mac Wilberg, who is the choir director for the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square, or Ryan Murphy, who's the associate choir director. And so I think that the purpose in having almost half, I mean, at least a third, almost half of our music in conference from the new hymnals, the new hymns, is so that we can become familiar with them. And so then they become
Very
to
nice.
us as beloved as our old hymns.
Right.
And the church immediately released some videos of all of the new hymns and the music from conference so that you can go back and repeat and listen to that. And just like what you said, when the more you listen to it, the more familiar it becomes. Then when it pops up on Sunday in sacrament meeting, y'all aren't sitting there struggling to get through it. Because we've been singing a lot of new hymns in our sacrament lately, and we've been on the struggle bus trying to wade through them. Also at conference, which they started this, I believe, in 2023, they invited international individuals to come and participate in conference by singing with the Tabernacle Choir. So there was a whole article this week in the Deseret News, kind of a behind the scenes, how does this work sort of a thing. Those choir members have to go through an audition very similar to what the Tabernacle Choir members go through who are regular choir members.
Okay.
They have to get endorsements from their local leaders. They have to submit recordings. They have to do a music theory test. They also sing live for choir officials, which they say sometimes happens in the middle of the night, depending on where you are. And they must have an English proficiency and the ability to travel to the United States.
Wow.
So they weed through all these people, and much like the regular choir, people will apply 2 and 3 times trying to get in
Right.
for these spots. So if you are selected, you get to come over here and you get to spend 2 weeks in Salt Lake City learning the music for conference, hanging out with the Tabernacle Choir. You
Wow.
attend choir school, rehearsals, meetings with the church's music department, and you learn more about the choir history and music. Now, the other interesting thing that this article says is that they're called as missionaries. I did not realize that the members of the Tabernacle Choir are called as missionaries and they are set apart as missionaries. I mean, really, it makes sense, but it just never dawned on me.
Right.
So likewise, these people are called as missionaries, and their mission is for 5 years. Now, that doesn't mean that they get to come and sing every year for 5 years. Once you have sung twice in general conference, then your mission is over. And so it's 5 years or twice in general conference. So this last session, we had people from Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, Brazil, Sweden, England, France, Finland, Qatar, Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Wow.
So very, very cool. And that was, like I said, kind of a fun piece just to hear and learn about how that whole process goes down.
Nice.
I know. All right. Last thing on conference. Conversion statistics. Tell me what you thought when they started talking. I'm trying to remember which apostle started talking about the conversion statistics. It was one of them.
I can't remember. But when we were listening to the numbers,
Yeah, it was mind-blowing.
yeah. What was it? 900?
900,000. Oh, it was Quentin L. Cook. That's who it was. It's right
900,000
here.
in 3 years.
Yes. So he said that 900,000 converts had joined the church within the last 3 years.
Wow.
He said in 1840, so that would be 85 years ago. 85 years ago in 1840, there were only 860,000 members of the church. So more people have joined in the last 3 years than were members of the church 85 years ago.
Wow.
So I think that's a real testament to our missionary effort. The other thing too, and I recall him saying this, or at least I thought I did, or I drew some dots there, that not only are these people joining, they're staying, that it's a true conversion. Because you and I were teenagers in the 80s. You served a mission in the 80s. A lot of the emphasis in the 80s was numbers, numbers, numbers. Conversion wasn't the emphasis. It was how many people can you baptize? And so I think the church learned from that. We have to have a true conversion. We can't just have a baptism and have these people take covenants that aren't truly converted to keeping those covenants.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts on that?
I just think it was pretty mind-blowing. I think this is where your temples are going to come from in the next year, or at least another one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
900,000 in 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of
It's 300,000 a year.
brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Huh?
And people who are staying, not just
Exactly.
people who are getting baptized, but staying, being converted, being active. So
It is. It's wonderful to see things like that and how the people have been so prepared for that area just to boom like that.
Yep. All right. Well, unless you have anything else to say on conference, I think we'll wrap up conference. You want anything else you want to add about conference?
Nope.
You want to tell them how good my cinnamon rolls were?
They were pretty good.
I had not planned on making cinnamon rolls, but Saturday night you're like, can we have cinnamon rolls tomorrow?
Yeah.
Who's a good wife?
Oh, yeah.
And so I made you some cinnamon rolls. All right. The next big news item that happened this week. Okay. I have to tell you before we move on to this next big news item, you have been really good for TWIM. And let me tell you why you have been really good for TWIM. It has been a slow news year. And as soon as you joined TWIM, our news has picked up exponentially and we've gotten lots of news. We are usually struggling for stories. So I've decided you're our good luck charm for TWIM in bringing some stories forward.
Well, sometimes I don't feel really prepared here because I really don't prepare.
That
if
is
that's all
not
right.
True. I tell you what we're going to talk about. I read you stories while we're driving around.
You do that.
So that you at least can, think of something to say.
Right.
Or at least go, oh yeah, she mentioned this. All right. So our next big news story this week is President Nelson had his funeral. And his funeral was on Tuesday at 10 a.m. because like I said, we in the church, we like to start things that happen in Salt Lake at 10 a.m. That's why I say press conference Monday, 10 a.m. Um, and so it was in the conference center at Temple Square. There was a viewing on Monday. I saw some of the pictures from the viewing on Monday, and people were lined up, like they were circling the
Nice.
block to be able to get in and pay respects to President Nelson, which I thought was really cool. And honestly, if I'd lived in Utah, I probably would
Yeah.
have said, Darren,
Yeah.
let's go do this. This is not, I mean, it's almost kind of a, I don't want to say once in a lifetime thing, but it's a very unique thing to be able to say that you've done.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they had a public viewing on Monday. They had this funeral on Tuesday, and there were tickets to the funeral, and you had to get tickets if you wanted to go to the funeral. We did not obviously watch the funeral Tuesday at 10 a.m. because both you and I thought maybe going to work at 10 a.m. on Tuesday seemed like a good thing.
Right.
Tell them when we watched the funeral.
Yesterday?
Was Thursday night.
Thursday night.
Thursday night. We were prepping for the wedding.
That's what.
We had churro dough that I had made Wednesday night, and we were rolling out our churro dough on Thursday
Cranking
night.
it out.
Cranking it out because we have you crank out your churro dough in a sausage press, in case you all wanted to know, because why would you not want to know that? And so we are cranking out the churro dough, and I said, let's put on President Nelson's funeral. I had been talking with one of the attorneys in my office who's a member of the church, and he asked me if I'd seen President Nelson's funeral, and I said no. And he said, oh, you got to go watch it. He said, especially the last part when the choir is doing the final song and they do a video tribute to President Nelson. He said, it's fantastic. So I said, let's put President Nelson's funeral on and listen to President Nelson's funeral while we do this. And it was great. They had a number.
Loved it.
Exactly. They had a number of his kids participating. First of all, they had all the members of the Quorum of the 12 standing kind of by where the entrance is, where the apostles come in for the conference center. And so they all stood there in their little rank and file while they wheeled in President Nelson's casket, which I thought kind of was a cool tribute. They did that both at the beginning as well as the end. They had two daughters one daughter gave an opening prayer, one daughter gave a closing prayer. There was a daughter who gave a talk. There was a son that gave a talk. He only had one son. And so this is Russell M. Nelson Jr. And I think both of us thought, how would you like to carry that name around, especially if you lived in Utah?
That's a big name.
And he talked about that in his talk. He talked about how he'd have conversations with his father and, they share that name and not to scully that name. Anyway, it was really fun to hear from his family. And because they, of course, were telling stories about President Nelson that they experienced on a family level that, of course, we didn't experience as members of the church. We saw him as a prophet. And so it was just fun to hear him as those family stories. The other thing too that I noticed that they all acknowledged is they all acknowledged his wife, Wendy. So all of these children are from his first wife, Danzel, and Wendy came along about a year after Danzel died, and they all acknowledged Wendy and how wonderful she was for him, how she helped him, how she aided him. And I could truly tell, at least the ones who spoke and gave prayers and stuff, that they truly had a love in their heart for Wendy and how she had treated their father. Likewise, the general authorities who spoke to did that. And I thought I was very appreciative of that. I thought that was very cool because she did provide a lot of support for him and really was a helpmate for him in, the whole time he was a prophet.
Oh, yeah.
President or Jeffrey Holland spoke, Elder Holland. He's no longer president. He's now been relegated to elder status. That will probably change tomorrow. Because assuming that President Oaks becomes the new prophet, then he will no longer be the acting president of the 12. He will actually be the president of the 12. President Eyring spoke, and then, of course, President Oaks spoke.
I loved it.
Loved President Oaks's talk. In fact, I've got some excerpts from it here, and I'm just going to share with you what I loved about President Oaks. So they got called, I think, at the same time or fairly close to each other. So they sat together for 34 years in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles before President Nelson became the prophet. And so he talks about that time, throughout that 34 years as they're sitting there. And he said, during that 34 years, his approach was reserved and thoughtful participation in quorum meetings. He wasn't in there, cracking the whip or whipping around ideas or anything like that. He was just thoughtful and reserved. And President Oaks talked about, there's a lot of lawyers in those over the 34 years in there. And the lawyers would be like, well, we need to study this. We need a committee for this. We need a committee for that.
Could you imagine?
Oh, I can't imagine. Anyway.
I live with one.
You live with one. I work with 9 others. Anyway, probably much harder though if you live with one, because at least we all think alike and talk alike, and you poor folks who aren't lawyers have to deal with us.
Oh, I understand it.
Anyway, so he kind of sets that as the background, and then he says, and I'm going to use this quote. He says, I was not prepared for what happened in January 2018 when he became our president with the mantle of the prophet settled upon him.
Wow.
Suddenly, I saw Russell M. Nelson as a decisive church decision maker. And he said that he decided that this decisiveness was representative of his professional work as a surgeon, and assumed and required quick decision makers because those they served were sometimes immobilized on a gurney with no time for postponement for their surgeon to make further study, as lawyers like to do, and no opportunity to ask for a continuance, again, as lawyers like to do. So he said that he decided that, he said, I tightened my seatbelt a few more notches and said to myself, being a counselor in this first presidency is going to be fun. Now, one of the first things they did, and I guess I didn't realize this because this tells you I never read the Liahona or at that time, I think it was still the Ensign. There was always a first presidency message every month. And so President Nelson was like, yeah, we don't need that. We're getting rid of that. That was one of the first things they got rid of. And President Oaks was like, well, okay, I guess that's gone. And then, of course, we as members of the church began to see all of the changes that he made. It just makes me wonder if he sat there for 34 years and he's just pondering things going, well, do we need to do it this way? Do we need to do it that way? And then when that mantle settled upon him, he went to the Lord and he's like, I got a lot of thoughts. I've been sitting there for 34 years. Can I share with you my thoughts? And he shared.
Very nice.
And then we saw a whole lot of change. I think that President Oaks is going to have a decidedly different tenor as president and prophet. What do you think?
I love it.
Well, he's a lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to want to study and contemplate.
I only like me a handful of lawyers.
Anyway, his talk was great. So I really enjoyed
what I loved about that talk was just you could just see how close they were.
Yeah.
As what he called him his best friend.
He did.
And when you heard that, you were like, that means a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that they were super tight in everything that they were doing. And to be humble.
Exactly.
And to listen.
Because he said he was his best friend and most effective teacher.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of lawyers, present company included. Sometimes we're not very humble and sometimes we're not very teachable.
When I fell in love with Tiffany, I did not know she was a lawyer.
I hid that thought. Or
yes.
hid that. I didn't hide that from him. I just didn't
it would not have worked.
tell him. Till after I reeled him in. Then I was like, by the way.
That was shady work right there.
I'm a lawyer. What do you expect?
Exactly. No, but what a wonderful relationship to have.
Yeah.
I have so much love for President Nelson and just the things which he ushers in these latter days and just gave us such great things to live by, especially the first thing, was the biggest thing that I use right now is daily repentance. It may not happen every day, but it reminds me multiple times a week to repent of my sins and get straight with the Lord and the Heavenly Father. And without hearing that, I mean, it was,
We
I'd,
didn't
I'd carry
hear
him
that.
on for
Yeah,
a couple months or
exactly.
so. But just the wonderful heart and love which he has for all of us.
Yeah,
So and his kids talked about that,
he did.
especially when they were like, "Thank you for praying for my father." You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
They could feel it.
And yeah, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, he is definitely going to be missed. But at the same time, I think we are forward thinking to President Oaks, and it will be very interesting to see what he brings to the table and the issues and things that he wants to focus on as being the prophet. I mean, it's not going to be remarkably different
No,
from what President Nelson focused on, but he will have his own twist to it.
and I loved what he talked about in conference. Elder Oaks, President Oaks, was family and bringing in the true meaning of why we're here.
Yeah,
It is because of eternal family. Talked about it started as a council, as a family in heaven, and in our family,
hmm
and it's you and I understand this,
yeah,
but when one of your kids is off a little bit, I mean, there's a lot of prayer that goes
yeah.
and it is family, and then we're back to just having faith and keeping our prayers and but also letting them know our values.
Yep,
Good
yep.
stuff.
It is good stuff. All right. Well, believe it or not, there were a few other things that happened this week. I know, hard to believe. First of all, so we're going to hit on these really quick because we are burning time up.
Nice.
So, did you know that yesterday, 2 days ago, October 9th, was the 150th anniversary of the dedication of the tabernacle?
Wow.
So they marked that. They talked about the tabernacle. 12 presidents of the United States have spoken there. Susan B. Anthony, Charles Lindbergh, Helen Keller, lots of prominent people. The building's acoustics, which are very well known, that you can hear a pin drop 170 feet away without the use of a microphone.
Wow.
Talks about Brigham Young's turtleback design. Do you remember hearing this story as a kid? I don't know if this is true or if it's folklore about Brigham Young is eating an egg and it's cut in half. And he's like, this is what the tabernacle should look like. Make it a dome like this. Do you ever hear that story?
Not that one.
Oh,
No.
maybe it was just me who heard that story.
But I know he was very wise
Yes.
as a builder.
I don't think the inspiration from that probably came from a hard-boiled egg, but that's the story I heard growing up as a kid.
Somebody needs to comment.
And let us know, is it true or is it Mormon folklore?
I can't see him just packing around an egg.
Well, no, he's sitting there at breakfast and he's contemplating his hard-boiled egg that he's eating at breakfast. And he's like, what if we slice this in half? And supposedly he put like little toothpicks in it.
I don't think he was a hard-boiled egg kind of guy.
And this is what our tabernacle should look like. Now go make it work. Kind of like President Nelson going, this is where we need a temple. Now go make it work. I don't know. That's just the story I heard.
We need to fact check that one.
Well, it's not in this article by the Church News, so I kind of guess it's probably not true.
Right.
But anyway, that's what I learned growing up.
1875.
1875.
Wow.
Oh, and here's the funny thing too. This is the best part. So they did a remodel of this building, okay? And so they seismically upgraded it between 2005 and 2007. Took them 2 years. And so when they had the rededication, they sat on new benches. So these weren't the original benches. But of course, President Hinckley quipped at that time that the new benches are as hard as the old ones. He's not wrong.
Nice.
All right. We had a meeting house in Australia that was destroyed by fire. Hebersham. Now, you went on your mission to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us where Hebersham is.
Well, it's on the other side of Australia.
It's on the Sydney side. He was not on the Sydney side.
No.
What side were you on?
I was on the good side, the Perth, the
Perth
western side. The
Anyway.
city built on sand. is where I was.
Oh, okay. They do not know at this time whether this was an accidental fire or an arson, but we're down another meeting house due to a
Bummer.
little fire. So, yeah, kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Then this week, the church sent a letter out to the leaders, which would be the bishops and branch presidents of the 31,676 congregations in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints. And those leaders are being asked to review their safety procedures and emergency response preparation. This, of course, is in response to the shooting in Michigan. Not entirely too surprising. You and I had talked about that, probably given the circumstances of that Michigan shooting, that the church is going to be reevaluating, what they do. There was no change in this letter to the church policy of, we really don't want you to carry handguns on our property. But I think we all know that that's not always followed, but that's a discussion for another day. It will just be interesting over the course of the next little while to see how different stakes and the local areas choose to evaluate their emergency response.
Right. How sad.
It is sad.
That's a sad thing. You know what? I can't wait. I can't wait to, you and I've talked about this, to start hearing more and more of the miracles.
Yeah.
We read one together. What was it? The 14-year-old boy
Yes.
that, and just the miracles, and even comparing it to other things like, what was it? The Cokeville miracles.
The Cokeville Miracle. So one of our favorite movies is called The Cokeville Miracle. We love that movie. It's about elementary school that was taken hostage by some crazy people in Cokeville, Wyoming. It's a very heavily populated LDS community, and how these children were protected and how it was their ancestors. And since then, we have seen, you and I have read together a lot of the stories of the survivors of this incident.
Yeah.
And just the various miracles that they have witnessed and experienced and are bearing testimony to. One of the ones we were talking about is there was a 14-year-old, and he was standing at the door greeting people and ushering them into sacrament meeting, and making sure the doors are open and closed during the preparation of the sacrament. After the sacrament was finished, his nose just started running uncontrollably. And so much so that he left his post to go to the bathroom to get a tissue. In that time period, that is when the gentleman came and smashed the church, drove his car into the building, and started into the building to started shooting people. And so he would have been right there when the gentleman entered the church had he not left his post. He left his post. He came back. He grabbed his two younger brothers, who I think were 8 and 10. His sister got separated. She went with another family. His mom was kind of hysterical, and he calmed his mom down and said he threw his younger siblings into a car of another that was leaving the building. He and his mom were hiding behind another car. He calmed his mom down and said, she's going to be fine. We'll find her. She went with so-and-so. And then they ultimately found her in the woods, carrying a hymn book. But I think we're going to hear a lot of these stories. And I hope that probably not soon, because it's very tender still, that TC Christensen gets a movie script and we get a really good movie out of this.
Right.
That's very faith promoting.
Yeah.
So
Miracles. Love the miracles.
Love the miracles.
Miracles are for the believing.
Exactly. There's a quote by Brigham Young that is one of my favorite quotes that talks about miracles are not for the unbelieving. Miracles are for the people who believe, to give them strength and renew them. And again, another one of our favorite movies is 17 Miracles. We both had ancestors on 17 Miracles that crossed the plains, some of which were depicted as characters in the movie, but just the miracles that they saw that were for the believing to continue to sustain them.
Love it.
Love it. Okay, so our next story is, I'm just going to touch on this really quick. The Nauvoo Bell. There was a bell on Temple Square, right outside the Relief Society building, that sat there for years and years and years, that everybody thought was the Nauvoo Bell originating from the Nauvoo Temple. Well, come to find out, it was never the Nauvoo bell. It belonged to, I believe, a Lutheran church. If I'm correct, let me pull this up really quick. It was actually stolen from a Presbyterian church, not the Lutherans, the Presbyterians. It's debatable whether it was stolen or just repossessed by a pastor that got fired back in the 1800s. And it made its way to Salt Lake City. Long story short, um, and the church bought it, not knowing that it was, quote unquote, a hot bell. And then they got some word that, hey, this might not belong to the people who sold it to you. And then they said, okay, well, you prove ownership and pay to take it back, and you can have it back. And they never could raise the funds. So then it just went into storage with the term old bell. So somebody in the 1930s was digging around in storage, found this old bell, and created this folklore that this was the Nauvoo bell. So it sat on Temple Square for a number of years. They're doing reconstruction of Temple Square. They decide they're going to remove the bell. They start looking into the history of the bell, and they're like, maybe this isn't really even our bell.
But it's still cool.
But it's still cool. So the church decides we need to return the bell to the Presbyterians in Iowa City. So they made arrangements to return the bell. The Presbyterians had a kind of a rededication of their bell.
Nice.
Last Sunday, while we were having conference, they were rededicating their bell at the First
Sweet.
Presbyterian Church in Iowa City.
How cool.
So I thought that was really cool. And their pastor talked about the unity of the bell and very much gave a peacekeeping message just right along the same lines of what President Nelson would
Nice.
do. Okay, let's finish our last story.
Let's do it.
I did this one just for you
Oh,
because he likes baseball, although you don't really watch much baseball anymore,
no.
but you used to watch a lot of baseball.
I did.
Kind of before professional sports got really
Yeah.
kind of corrupted.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where it turned
Oh,
you
I didn't
off.
mind the corruption part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just couldn't stand the politics
The
in
politics and
Yeah.
the egos.
it. The corruption was fine.
Oh, okay. Apparently we're fine with corruption. It's not politics and egos.
Just in sports.
In sports. Yep, we're not going down that rabbit hole tonight. So, Bo Jackson. Tell us all who Bo
Oh,
Jackson is.
He was
Because
like,
I had no idea who Bo Jackson
no,
is.
as soon as you said that earlier today,
We're going
I
back
was
to
like,
the 80s.
oh, yeah.
Okay.
Love the Bo Jackson. Such a,
So who is he? If you're not a sports person.
he is someone that is so gifted in sports. He would play Major League Baseball and then in the NFL. And he was like talented in both sports. I mean, like high level.
Yeah.
Like
he would go back and forth between the Kansas City Royals
yeah.
and the LA Rams. So he was literally playing two professional sports
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah. And I didn't like any of those teams, but I did like the Bo
Okay.
Jackson.
So
Super cool.
in July of 1989, he is down at Dodger Stadium for the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. There also at Dodger Stadium is a BYU student. He's actually a law student. He's between his second and third year of law school. And
Mhm.
he is, well, let me give you a little backstory. He roomed with a BYU football player. This football player was being recruited by the NFL. The football player says, hey, I'm meeting with an agent tonight. Come with me. And so he goes with him, and the agent recruits him and he signs him, and the football player gets signed with the Rams. Meanwhile, the agent says, hey, do you want to spend a summer learning how to be a sports agent in California? And the law student was like, sure, why not? So that very same agent gave him and his buddies tickets to this All-Star game. So he goes to the All-Star game,
Wow.
and about 2 hits before Bo Jackson did this home run, he's like, yeah, I'm going to catch a Bo Jackson home run. And then guess what happens?
He caught
He
it.
caught it. There was
No.
mayhem about how he caught it, but he caught it. And so, of course, somebody from the Angels comes up to him and says, yeah, Bo's going to want that ball back. And he's like, well, we'll negotiate for that. And so they give him brand new seats over behind the dugout. And then after the game is over with, he meets Bo, and Bo Jackson has a brand new ball and he's going to autograph it. And the guy is just cocky enough because he's between his second and third year of law school where you think you know stuff, but you really don't. He's like,
Imagine that.
imagine that. He says, well, I was thinking I need a little more than just a baseball. So he's like, I want a bat. Here's all my friends' hats. I want you to sign those. I'm sure Bo Jackson is just
Like a lawyer would.
like a lawyer would. I'm sure Bo Jackson is just rolling his eyes, but he capitulate. He acquiesces and does this anyway. And so this article is about this Paul Cooper and and just his experience in doing that and how he ended up there. And it was just really a cute article because he said, I could have kept the ball. I didn't have to give it back to him and I could have sold it for millions, but that wasn't what this was about. And there's a very famous picture of him catching the ball and then holding it up in the air. And this was before YouTube. This was before anybody had cell phones and would record stuff.
Right.
So he would tell people this and they'd go, oh, yeah, right, whatever. But then it's now ended up on YouTube and he can show people on YouTube. And it
Nice.
ended up in this documentary about Bo Jackson and his career. Anyway, so it was just kind of a fun piece on that.
Nice.
So what did you think of it when I read it to you?
I thought it was pretty cool. Huh.
How could you even imagine?
No, not
Catching-
at all.
What would you have done if the ball was flying? Would you have elbowed everybody out of your way?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would have. If he'd been there, he would have caught the ball.
Most likely.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up for us tonight, with the exception of favorite things.
Mhm.
Because guess what? I don't have any Mormons in the media. I think all the media stories this week were really related directly to the church. Again, because we had big news stories, there wasn't a lot of stuff that we had to make fluff pieces about Mormons in the media to create stories. And no Mormons behaved badly. We were all good this week. I could not find any Mormon behaving badly stories.
Nice.
So again,
Nice.
so that's where we're not going to have those two segments tonight, but
Yeah.
we are going to have favorite things. So you start with your favorite thing and then I'll do mine.
My favorite thing is, besides my new haircut,
Oh yeah, he's sporting a new haircut tonight.
Mhm.
If you're watching on the video.
so we use this seasoning. We usually stay with Meat Church seasoning.
We do.
Because they're good, they're basic, enough blends to cover it. But for this last cook that we did, we got this one's made by Hardcore Carnivore. Here's for the
Yes.
Once you can
I'll
see
hold
it.
it up.
and
It
it's
is called Tex-Mex.
that's the blend, is the Tex-Mexican made by Hardcore Carnivore.
And it is taco and fajita seasoning.
And it is good.
Phenomenal.
Oh man.
So not only did you use this for the pork
Mhm.
that you smoked on the Traeger, I don't know if I told you this. I threw a bunch of this in the queso
Oh,
because I wanted some good Mexican seasoning in the queso. So I threw this in the queso and you tasted my queso.
Mm.
It was a delish.
Wow, that was the kicker right
That
there.
was
huh?
the kicker right there,
Hmm.
was the hardcore Tex-Mex seasoning. So we highly recommend that.
Good stuff.
All right, I'm going to share you my favorite thing. So first of all, see this can right here?
Mm.
This is Diet Coke Cherry. Now, if you were alive in 1986 like I was, and you consumed Diet Coke in 1986 like I did, because I love Diet Coke and have for a number of years, in 1986, Diet Coke introduced the Diet Coke Cherry. Now, you can add cherry flavorings to your Coke, your Diet Coke, but it just doesn't taste the same as Diet Coke Cherry. So this summer in July, Diet Coke did a limited edition, special edition run of the Diet Coke Cherry. My daughter, the bride, to pre-thank me for the wedding, found a 12-pack and brought it over to me. I have been nursing this thing ever since then. I probably have about half of it left because I will only open it and consume it on special occasions. Because let me tell you, when I open it and consume it, I directly go back to 1986, and it just makes me feel like when I was working in the grocery store in 86 and I was
Wow,
a
how
teenager,
fun.
because the flavor of this is not replicated anywhere else. So
So it's not on the shelves.
it is not on the shelves.
Oh.
And it was a very limited edition run this summer. Like, I tried to go back and find it again and I couldn't. So I'm hoping they'll re-release it again. But what they have released this week that you can get your hands on is the
Mm.
Diet Coke Lime. Now, it does not take me back to 1986. It does not take me back to high school, but it does have a really good flavor to it. I like it. It is not nearly as good as the Diet Coke Cherry, but it's good. So I'm telling you all, you Diet Coke little lovers out there, go get your hands on this as soon as you can, because I have a feeling it's going to fly off the shelf like the Diet Coke cherry did. So
Very nice.
you tried the lime. You liked the lime.
Hmm.
Now, when I gave you a sip of the cherry, his response to the cherry was, "Oh, this tastes like Robitussin cough syrup."
The DM.
The DM.
The
And I was
old.
like, "No, it doesn't." So, which is good, because that way he will not be drinking my Diet Coke cherry. He will be drinking my Diet Coke lime, which I can get plenty of those right now, because the same daughter who got me the Diet Coke cherry called me today and she said, "I got you 2 12-packs of the lime." And I said,
Mm.
"Well, that's great, because I already have 2 12-packs. So now I'll have 4 12-packs. So I'm stocked up on lime. All right. Thank you for joining me tonight.
You're welcome.
This has been so much fun. Do you want to say anything before I shut the show down? I
No.
want to give you the opportunity to have any last
This
words.
is my favorite time of year when everything starts changing, and this is my happiest because I know the snow's coming.
He
But
loves
it's also a great opportunity to serve.
Mhm.
So if anybody out there is like dealing with a trial or just needs some extra blessings, lose yourself. Go find someone to serve, preferably someone with yard work or just raking leaves, talking. There's so many ways. If you ask the Lord to put people in your way to serve, He will. We've done this, and
We have.
yeah,
It's powerful.
and it's usually like that when it's happening.
Yeah.
So, but it's just a good way if you're not really digging this time of year, then go serve.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, Darren, thank you for joining me tonight. I
Yep.
love having you on. I still can't believe that you do this with me. It blows me away.
No, I have not listened to one yet.
But this is what, your 4th time recording?
Is it really?
I think it's your 4th time recording.
Hmm.
You got that special bonus episode in a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
But
yes.
I think this is your 4th time recording. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. TWIM listeners, thank you. We appreciate your undying support of us. As always, you can find us on Facebook. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out at contact@thisweekinmormons.com. We like to open our mailbag and read those. So we hope that you have a lovely evening and a good weekend. Thank you.